everyone, Sophie here. I am on episode 6 of my sketchbook series, and where we left off, we were just working through this book 1 and looking at all the ideas. I skipped over this page for a couple of videos because I wanted to do a special video just on the topic of urban sketching. This is the only urban sketch that came up in the first couple of sketchbooks, but it has actually been a huge theme of my art practice for the past 5 years. I love urban sketching and all of the accompanying activities that you can do and all of the artistic exploration that goes into it. So today I'm going to tell you a little more about that. Urban sketching has an official website. It's called urbansketchers.org, and they have a manifesto and everything, which includes drawing on location, drawing from real life, and posting the drawings online. The absolute goal for me has been to be able to grab my kit and my sketchbook that I already know has all the materials that I love, be able to go anywhere and draw anything that I want. So part of that, though, I practice exercises when I'm at home. And this one actually I did not do on location. And what I do, so there's a lot of different ways that you can start urban sketching without actually going anywhere. So this would be maybe if you want to practice at home first, to make sure that your supplies all work together so that when you actually get on location, all you have to do is pull out what you already know works and make a sketch in a technique that you already know how to do. If it's funner or better or more interesting for you and you have the ability to go out, you can do all that practice on location. But if you don't, if you have kids, if you have time constraints and you just need to work at your desk, or if you're nervous about how it's going to go when you're in front of people, when you're out in public, you can practice at home first at your desk and still get a lot of the benefits of urban sketching, quote unquote. The way that I do this is I find books that have very nice urban scenes in them. And this one, I don't know where you could ever get this. I got this from a library sale, or maybe not a library sale. I got this from a book sale. I got it from an antique market. And I just fell in love with, I love these images. And so I figured I would use this for urban sketching. And I have another one here. This one is the rooftops of Paris. I love the imagery in this. And I've always wanted to go to Paris, so it's a nice little fantasy sketch trip for me. And so I just find books that have really nice urban images, and then I sketch from the books. And so you can do all your practice up front at home. And part of practicing is making sure that your materials work with your sketchbook, and part of practicing is to try and get good at sketching so that you're happy with your overall sketches and you don't have to think too hard or feel stressed about how they're going to come out once you're on location. The other way you can urban sketch from home is actually draw from life, but just draw the stuff in your house. So this is one of the books that I made. This is a book that I made 5 years after I was doing this kind of practice, but I did one sketch every day in this book just of stuff in my house. Or sometimes I would go out. Here we took a trip to the racetrack and I drew people at the racetrack. But most of these are stuff in my house. That's my dog. That's some furniture we were moving. This is out. I was sitting at the coffee shop waiting in line to get my coffee, and they had this really awesome image outside. Or not image, but I just thought that this looked super cool, so I drew that while I was waiting for my coffee. And it was really cool too because I almost every day ended up just sketching something at my home. But I would bring my sketchbook everywhere with me, and when I had the chance, I already knew I was going to have a sketch for the day. I knew I needed to sketch something, and if I came along an opportunity where I could sketch something, then I would just do it. So, and I would constantly be looking out for my day of interesting stuff that I was doing or interesting stuff that I saw. Even if I didn't have time to sketch it in the moment, this one I was actually out with my family and we saw this tractor and we were walking past pretty quickly because we were going to dinner, so I just snapped a photo of this, but it's still part of my day and it's still something that I saw and telling the story of my life. So you can do urban sketching in a lot of different ways, either from photo references. It just depends on what your main interest in it is. If your main interest is being able to draw from life, you can start from books. You can start from the stuff in your house. If your main interest is keeping a record of stuff that you are doing and going through, then you can always take pictures if it's going too fast. And then the most maybe difficult, it's not necessary, it doesn't have to be difficult. You just take a pen and a book and you sketch. But the most difficult, I mean, you're not in your studio, you can't make changes in your materials, you have to really have everything that you have with you, and you don't have time to practice. You're just gonna be at the skill level that you are while you're going around. But the third actual way to urban sketch is to take a travel sketch book and actually do travel sketching while you're going through your vacation. And this is one that I took to Japan and China. I have a separate video of this. I did not get to plan my own trip, so I was just with my family and I was just drawing these as I was walking around. And so some of them are pretty unfinished and some of them are all over the place, and some of them actually I had time to sit down and draw, so they're a little more detailed. But it's a great way to capture your trip. I remember everything from this trip. I remember these moments. I remember what I was feeling. I remember being in the plane. There's something about drawing that really captures it in a way that brings all the feelings back to me more than looking at pictures. And it's such a record of where I was that's so personal to me and what I found interesting and what I was seeing, that I really find myself flipping through my travel sketchbook and my daily sketchbooks more often than I find myself going back and looking through pictures of my life. So it's a great way to capture a trip and also to incorporate art into your daily life. So this is essentially a beginner's video, and what I'm going to do is just give a broad overview. Those are ways you can incorporate it into your life and practice. And now I'm just going to talk a little bit about materials, and then after I talk about the materials and how to make them portable if you're going to be leaving the house, I will show you a flip through of this sketchbook, which is mostly urban sketching or sketching from home. And this is a very early book that I started in. So let's start by talking about materials. One thing you can bring is a pencil. Now, pencils in sketchbooks tend to be kind of messy. They will rub off onto the other page. So if you bring a pencil, you will want to also bring a fixative. And I found these super cute little bottles. We have sort of a thrift store, but it's just for art supplies, and it's not near my house, but it's like an hour away. So sometimes when I'm in the city, I go there. So they had these at my local shop, and you can use any kind of container, but I think the spray bottle is really nice because if you spray this on your pencil drawings after you do them, then they won't rub off onto the next page in your sketchbook. They'll be fixed in place. And this, luckily, is a workable fixative, so I can reuse, I can draw over it if I want to. The only thing about this is if you spray a pencil drawing and then want to watercolor over it later, it doesn't look good. The watercolor doesn't lay on top of this fixative very well. But it's a way that you can take pencil out into the field and draw, that you can get some really amazing pencil pictures. I think the pencil is a very underrated tool. I keep this one in my travel kit. It is a sepia colored lead in a 2mm lead holder. I really like this Kohinoor one. because of how it looks. And then it also has a little sharpener in the end to sharpen your lead point on location if you want to. So this is really a tiny little kit that you can take. It fits in your pocket. It's super simple. There's no eraser. I don't need an eraser. It was really important to me when I first started drawing to be able to draw in pen and to practice drawing immediate marks and not having to go back and fix them. So I don't erase, but sometimes when I'm doing something that makes me nervous in a pen drawing, I will do a pencil drawing first that's very light because this color is a lot lighter than the pen lines, and so sometimes I'll use pencil for that. If it's a subject that, like a face of a friend, those are really hard to get, so it's useful for that as well if you want to put this with your pen kit. I'll show you a few examples of drawings I did with the pencil. This is actually a travel sketchbook. We went on a trip to Arizona to see my friend's dad. This is his dad, and I also drew his brother's little dog. I had my sepia pencil here and then another 2mm lead that was in black, and so I used those for the whole trip. And I actually sketched the flight for this trip as well in pencil. It's easy to get smooth shading, and I didn't want to I was having issues with my fountain pen on the plane because of the air pressure and stuff, so the pencil was the easiest to draw with on the plane. So I did my plane drawing with the black 2mm lead. Here's a picture of my dogs. This one I just used black, and this one I used the sepia color, but then I did the details of his fur and collar in black. So it takes not all pencil leads will actually work with pen. It takes a little bit of experimenting to make sure that you can to make sure that your materials are compatible with each other. This one I did in black pencil again, and I did this from a photo. And then here's one that I did while I was just waiting for a burrito. I had only my sepia pencil, and you know, it's better than just waiting to me. And I drew the creamer. It's not anything super interesting. The chairs were up on the table because I went super late, so this background stuff here is the chair being up on the table. And even if it's something as simple as the coffee creamer at a burrito joint, it's still telling a picture of your day, and it's still a really nice reflection of where you're at the time and what you love to do at the time. So that's pencil. And then the next one I want to talk about is ballpoint. I have tried every ballpoint, and I like these zebras the best. If you have seen any of my other videos, you know that I get quite scientific to the point of being obsessive at times, but that's great for me. It works for my art practice, it works for my personality, and this is how I like to learn. So I took every single ballpoint that I could get my hands on. I went to Staples, I looked on Amazon, I bought tons of packs of ballpoint pens. They're very cheap, and I tested them all out for the properties that I wanted, which what I think of when I think of ballpoint is being able to get a smooth kind of gradient, and I wanted it to be a color that I liked. So I did this whole test page and also waterproof, because for me, the point of a ballpoint pen is for it to be super stable. I mean, pencil needs fixative. Some fountain pens are difficult to travel with because you have to consider how the ink, if it might leak or if it might react to changes in temperature. And these regular disposable pens a lot of time are not waterproof. So for me, the best thing about sketching with a ballpoint pen would be that it's completely easy. You can stick it in your pocket. It's never going to leak. It's always going to be there for you. It's very predictable. And I actually thought that all ballpoints were completely waterproof, but that is not true. Some of them have issues, and some of them do not react well to water. Some of them also do not react well to my fixative spray. So here are all my tests. for the watercolor and the fixative, or not, water and fixative. And then here are all my tests for the effects I can get. And I decided at the end that I like these zebra ballpoints the best. I also really love these Pentel RSVP ballpoints because of that color of blue that they are. But overall, these are my choice. These are my pen of choice when it comes to ballpoints. And you can get some really great drawings with just one pen. I drew this on that same trip that I showed you to Arizona. I brought a sketchbook for drawing from life, and then I brought another sketchbook to just do fun stuff from references that I picked up while I was there, or that, you know, in our downtime, if I didn't want to draw from life specifically, or I was particularly interested in some other kind of practice, that I could do that. So ballpoint can come out with some pretty awesome effects. I also took a ballpoint pen when I went on my actual trip, and a lot of the lighter stuff was actually drawn in Japan, or in ballpoint. I was using ballpoint kind of to sketch it out, but then some of the more detailed and difficult drawings I would just do completely in ballpoint, because you can get a lot better shading and value representation with ballpoint than you can with just a straight up line pen. So, and then you can also get some good effects. Let me find one where we went to the Great Wall and I sketched out the foreground in line pen, because you get a darker line, a very black. And then I sketched out the middle ground and the far ground in ballpoint, and it comes out with this very nice depth effect. And so taking a regular pen and a ballpoint or even a fountain pen and a ballpoint is a great way to go in your sketch kit, because you can get all kinds of nice stuff, and then you can also use the ballpoint for sketching and the pen to go over your final lines. I would definitely recommend that as a starter set if you're interested in the effects you can get with that. So the next one that I use in my practice is disposable pens. They are not always waterproof. The Sarasas and the Mujis are my favorite. They are the most waterproof. They're not quite waterproof, but they're pretty stable. You can watercolor with them. You're not going to get perfectly crisp lines after you watercolor over them, but they're also not going to smudge so much that you can't see what you drew. And they have really nice colors. The Sarasa sells some vintage sets that have these more muted colors that are darker, which are fantastic for sketching with. I have a Pilot Juice as well, which is very similar to the Sarasa and the Muji. They just have certain colors that the other sets don't have, so I just fill in what I don't have with this by ordering them as singles from jetpens.com. JetPens also sells individual refills for each color, at least in the Sarasa set. It's even the vintage ones, which I thought was awesome. That was the only place that I could find them. So I have, refills, and you can even just take a tiny case of refills if your main sketch tool is going to be the disposable pens, if that's your favorite. And then, of course, I have Pigma Microns in several colors. I like the plastic nibs better. The Micron PN has a plastic nib on it so that it doesn't wear out and get completely short like the felt tips tend to. But these are perfectly waterproof, and they come in a range of colors, and they're great sketching tools. I find that the ink runs out kind of fast, and that the nibs wear down kind of fast. And I just, in general, prefer sketching with fountain pens because of the different line variation you can get and the different, qualities and feel of writing. These are pretty technical, pretty straightforward, and pretty dry, if that makes sense. Some people prefer that, and for some drawings, I do prefer that, but for the most part, I want to try to get some, character to my sketches, and I feel like fountain pens do that better. But these are a great tool, and you can get some amazing drawings with some pens. Here are some sketches that I made with the Micron pens, and these are some of the colors that you can get in the micron set. These are all, these I think are microns. These are 0.5. And then this one was a Tombow Fude Nosuke small brush pen that I was using. So you can get some nice drawings with the microns. And then these I drew with the Muji pens. This one, experimenting with some super bright colors. This one was Ballpoint, so, you know, you can get some awesome effects. Here is Muji again. I used, you know, a blue one. So, definitely recommend experimenting with pens. The next category of pens I have is fountain pens. I use fountain pens as my primary sketch pens. These are my favorite pens to sketch with, but they weren't always. I didn't start out even really knowing that much about fountain pens, but you can get some really amazing drawings. I use these in most of my videos. I think if you have seen anything else from me, you have probably seen some fountain pen drawings. Here is my most recent sketchbook that I'm currently working on with a bunch of tests of fountain pens, different nibs, and different drawings that I was practicing. Here's an urban sketch practice from a Pinterest reference photo using different colors of ink. Because with fountain pens, with most fountain pens, I mean, the point of them is that you can put whatever ink you want in them, and that there's a ton of different inks to choose from. So, and then I took a sketch trip to a botanical garden and drew these with fountain pens. So they're definitely my favorite, and pen in general is absolutely my go-to. You can get a lot of awesome types of drawing effects and drawing techniques when using pen, and the amount of fountain pen nibs you can experiment with and inks you can experiment with are just astounding. For me, I love to use the De Atramentis document inks because they are waterproof, and you don't have to worry about if your sketchbook gets dropped or wet. You know, it won't smudge your drawings, and it is also fine to use watercolor with those. So here is just another sketch I did in fountain pen while I was on a hike at a lake. So those are definitely a tool I would recommend. Then we can get into adding color. You can add color, you know, a little bit with pencil and pen, but still you only have one color at a time, or you have to carry a lot at a time. For me, I would rather have my color in paint sets. So the two types of paint that I will take with me on location are watercolor and gouache. Watercolor is a world into itself, but there are a million pigments. I will talk a lot about watercolor in this series. There are a lot of different types of travel kits that you can make or buy. I like to make my own so that I can have whatever pigments I want in them, but there are a million options for you if you want to just buy a travel kit. It's relatively compact and simple to bring a ton of paint with you. I have myself done a lot of work trying to narrow down, playing with 3 color palettes and using only 4 or 5 pigments, or maybe 6 pigments to get the smallest set that I can, both for color mixing practice and also to refine my color palette style. But it is relatively easy and compact to take as many colors as you want. This will hold 40 half pans, and it is smaller than a large wallet. It will fit in, you know, a coat pocket or a bag very easily. You could easily take this on a travel experience. You can make a teeny tiny kit in an Altoids tin. This will fit 5 half pans. Right now I have my dip nibs in it, but I have used this before as a travel set. There are also these watercolor kits. That one's actually a gouache, but watercolor kits that you can build. I got these little guys from arttoolkit.com. She makes these herself, I think, out of these little business card holders, and you can actually get different pan sizes to go in here, and you can fit a lot of different colors in these as well. And this is the tiniest, easiest. This will fit in any pocket. And you can take, a pen and a watercolor kit, or a pencil and a watercolor kit, and you'll use a water brush that already has the water in here to grab your paint and put it on your on your drawing. So watercolor is awesomely convenient. You can mix any color you want from just a few different options, and it's absolutely the best. I think the most often kit that I see, and the starter kit I would recommend, is a few watercolors and a water brush and a pen of your choice. A waterproof pen, of course. And I often still fall back on that. This one was done in pen watercolor. And I use watercolor for some of my daily sketches. As you can tell, I really love this, you know, Payne's gray color. This isn't the same one, but I use this, you know, like a dark neutral blue very, very often. And I took a full watercolor kit as well on my Japan trip. And so all of these are done with just a little mini watercolor kit. You can get very nice drawings by just adding a little bit of color, even if you don't color the whole thing in if you don't have time. So watercolor, awesome for traveling with. And then the last one I want to talk about is gouache. So I also put my gouache in one of these little kits, and just carry around a couple colors of gouache, and especially the grays. For a while, a main part of my kit was just these gray set of gouache, and this is another daily sketchbook that I was using, and I drew these at work with the gouache, and you know, I left some places just full of pen, but you can easily get some really amazing looking values and the effect of an actual painting in your sketchbook very easily. Gouache travels well, it re-wets pretty well. You can get all kinds of gorgeous drawings with it that look like paintings. This is my mom's little dog on her chair. So, I mean, they just come out super good and lifelike when you paint them. And I limited myself to the grayscale because I find it a little difficult to mix colors on location. You can, but I found for me that working in gray, I got a picture that I was super, super happy with. I also struggle with color. I'm not quite sure. I haven't defined my artistic style and my color vibes yet. So I a lot of times will revert to black and white just because I know I'll get a drawing I like from black and white rather than using color. And then the last thing I want to talk about is paper. So there's several types of paper that you can use. You've already seen some in my demonstration. These are the Moleskine Art Plus sketchbooks, and they are pretty dang good. I use them for a lot. They hold a lot of different kinds of materials. I have used ballpoint, I have used gouache, I have used fountain pen. You know, they hold watercolor relatively well. These are a good starting place. Although if you do get the Moleskines, you want the Art Plus sketchbook. You don't want the blank notebook. They have blank paper. They have two blank notebooks, and one of them is very thin paper, and the other one is a nice thick kind of on art paper. You can also take a ring-bound hardcover sketchbook. I find this to be the absolute best system for travel journaling because it's easier to hold while you're in the field if you can flip this and just have your page that you're holding while you're drawing with the other hand. And the hardback also really helps with that process when you're drawing standing up. And that's what I had to do on this trip, and so this book worked out absolutely perfect for that. You can also use a paper pad. It doesn't have to be super fancy. This is the cheapest paper that I could find. I glued it together myself into this art pad, and so you can draw on a page and take it out, and then you can also rebind these into your own sketchbook later. That is what I did with most of these workbooks. That's how I got them. I just drew on this really cheap paper, and then I bound them together by gluing this. I will do a full tutorial on that at some point if you want it sooner than later. This is still a super new channel, so I will see your comments and I can make whatever kind of videos you want first. So I'll do that eventually, but you can just use something super simple as a paper pad, and then you can make something super fancy like your own sketchbook. I used Fabriano Artistico paper, which is my absolute favorite paper for sketching and drawing on because it is absolutely fantastic paper for watercolor. It will give a very smooth wash, and also it is hot pressed. I use the hot pressed, so it will hold pen very nicely as well. And so I cut these all down and I made this book myself. I still have some things to work out in my binding process. I'm going to start sewing them instead of gluing them because some of my pages were coming out. And, you know, obviously I haven't fully worked out the cover, but I made small travel-sized versions of these, and I also made full-sized studio sketch versions of these with covers. And then I made little traveler's notebooks inserts with these. So I just on this one I sewed it, but I have several others where I just folded them in half and inserted them in a traveler's notebook kind of a setup. I didn't get the official traveler's notebook cover. I got a different one because I like the super long format doesn't work that great for me. And I like a, you know, kind of a fatter, narrower, or a fatter, shorter composition space. So you can do all kinds of stuff with your own paper. The traveler's notebook setup is the absolute easiest. You don't have to bind anything. So yeah, you can use any paper that you absolutely want. I would recommend testing all your materials together and testing all your materials on your paper before you go out. And if you're going to be travel journaling, it helps a little bit to get sort of before you go, to spend a little bit of time thinking about how you plan to approach your drawings, to be able to get things drawn very quickly. Because when you're on location, you don't want to be working out your artistic process. You just want to be able to draw, because you're only going to have several minutes, and if you're taking up those minutes by making your decisions, you're not necessarily going to be able to get everything sketched. So if you spend a little bit of time thinking about your process and also just practicing holding the exact sketchbook that you're going to take. I did this the night we were going to leave just to practice and make sure that the whole setup was comfortable for me, because once you get there, you can't change your materials, you can't change your sketchbook, and if something is really uncomfortable, then you're going to end up going your whole trip without being able to sketch. Although you can always try to find stuff in the country that you're visiting and try to make adjustments on the road, but it's a lot harder. There's a lot more available before you leave. And I actually didn't know that I would run out, but all of my pens ran out when I was there, and I had to pick up all new pens. So I would say plan for more. It takes, you know, you can carry so much in just a small packet in your carry-on luggage or your check bag, just to have extra supplies and make sure you don't have to restock in a foreign country. Okay, so that is urban sketching in a nutshell. There's several activities that you can do at home or traveling around in your city or even another country, and a bunch of supplies that you can test out in your own kits and see what you like to use the best. This video is getting kind of long, so I'm actually going to move the sketchbook flip through to the next video. So I will be back next week with episode 7, and I will show you all this maroon sketchbook that I made with a lot of urban sketching practice inside. So if you want to see that, check back in with me next week. I do know if you turn on notifications, it'll tell you when the video is posted. So if you're excited about it, I will see you then. Thanks everyone for watching, and have a great day.